Good evening. I'd like to call the Monday, April 25th, 2022 North Augusta City Council study session to order. At this time, I'd like to turn over to our City Administrator, Mr. Jim Clifford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we'll be going through 4 items this evening. The first will be the City Council meeting agenda, which is fairly light. Second item will be the department details from our department heads. Next, we'll go into Mayor's Matters, where we have 2 separate focus items, one by Cammie Hayes on a Riverside Village update, and one by Tom Zeeser to talk about the Greenway Bridge replacement options, which is down by the Butterfly Park and closer to the current public safety headquarters. And then lastly, we'll adjourn for a executive session at my request regarding property. So with that, I'll go ahead and go into the City Council meeting. And so we don't have any ordinances or resolutions currently on the agenda, although that may change this week. But currently what we have is for personnel is the employee of the quarter for January through March of this year. In your packet, it says to be announced, and it's Kim Newcomb from our IT department. So she won the employee of the quarter. And then under proclamation, the mayor will make a proclamation for National Travel and Tourism Week, of which North Augusta is hopefully a favored destination for people across the CSRA and beyond. So I'll pause for any questions on our agenda for next week. Hearing none, I'll move into department details, and leading us off will be Cammie Hayes for finance.
Good evening. Just have a few date reminders. Our business license due date is April 30th, and the city property taxes are due on May 1st, and both those dates are occurring over the weekend, so we will accept payments on Monday, the 2nd, without penalty. Also, next week, we have a Cycle 1 due date on May 5th, and we have a Cycle 2 disconnect on May 4th and 5th. And that's it.
Thanks, Cammie.
Next, we'll have public services with James Sutton.
Good evening. I'd like to update y'all on the Southwest Interceptor River Oaks Wastewater Interceptor repair. As y'all may recall, in a previous council meeting, you approved the 1,800 lineal feet of pipeline that was in critical need of repair. You approved that at a sum of about $188,000 and cents. We had sealed bid openings. Project come in at around $168,000. We're a little less than $25,000 that we have net left, that some part will be used for pipe and other fittings, but we definitely will be under budget with that portion of the pipeline. And the contractor, he did show up today and started the work, and we anticipate him being around the River Oaks area for the next couple of weeks until he completes that first section of the project. Questions or?
Thanks, James. Next, we'll go to planning and development with Tommy.
Mr. Mayor, the Georgia Avenue traffic calming submittals, the deadline was Friday, and we received 2 submittals. One was from Cranston Engineering, and the other one was from Kimley Horn. The next thing for us to do is to push that out to our review committee. I know that y'all are going to ask me when we're going to have this done. We're done getting it. It's a high priority. I don't want to make promises I can't keep, though. The Development Code Rewrite Committee meets virtually tomorrow afternoon at 5:30. Mr. McGee, Mr. Toole, hopefully y'all have the meeting invites, and we look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow.
Where's Kimberly Horn out of? Is that a local?
Columbia.
Columbia.
Yes, sir.
And so council members as well, just as far as we go through the selection committee, and this was, part of my education as well, is that's not strictly an in-house selection committee. There are members of SCDOT that are part of that as well. So that affects the timing of being able to run this through. So we cannot necessarily control the full timing aspect of when that goes forward.
Thanks, sir.
With that, we'll go ahead and push it over to Chief Thomas for public safety.
I think I told you about this early in the year, but the South Carolina Law Enforcement Association will be having a memorial service next week, May the 4th, which they will honor our officer that we lost last year, Dustin Beasley. So we'll do that. And then the second part of that, they'll do one again in the Hall of Fame, which is sometimes after August or maybe September. So I'll give you more information about that one as well. New radios are in, they're programmed. Almost half of them have been distributed, and the remaining should be assigned over the next 3 weeks. So we're working with Motorola, getting all those installed and working properly. The last thing, obviously, is Station 1, and again, we see everything taking shape. We did have a meeting with SCN and JLA virtually on Friday, and we talked about that with Mark, and we're going to get with IT and the contractors and get that process started pretty quickly also.
Chief, is that memorial service, is that in Columbia?
It is, yes, sir, at the Academy. Okay.
I noticed today there were several golf carts running up and down this Georgia Avenue. The brake lights did not work on it, which came to the street light, to the traffic light, excuse me. Had a senior moment there. And she made a right-hand turn, but she gave no indication where she was going.
Okay.
I would like to see us remind people who have golf carts of the law, the state law.
Okay. There's certain places you can be. Some of those side streets that feed into Georgia Avenue is probably where you're seeing them.
Right.
So we'll certainly take a look and make some reminders and maybe put that on our Facebook page. I think we've had it on there before.
Yeah, I think I saw that a while back, yeah.
Yes, sir. We'll
Thank
do
you.
that.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank
Okay.
Thanks, Chief. Next, we'll have Carl from Parks, Rec, and Tourism.
Good evening. We have a couple things going on. We had our sycamore tree removed today from the amphitheater. Hate to see that go, but for safety purposes for our public, we had to take that one down. The tree company did a great job, and there's just a few pieces of the stump remaining that need to be removed from the site. Had a soft opening for the splash pad last Friday at Riverview Park. It ran well through the weekend, and this morning it was discovered that we had a leak in the main lines, and we've teamed up with Public Services to get that repaired, hopefully next couple days. And when that gets online, we'll make a more formal announcement that we're open for the season. Summerfield Park continues to see some challenges with our splash pad over there, and we're working hard to get that going. And again, when that one comes online, we'll make an announcement. Activity Center will host a basketball tournament this weekend, consisting of almost 200 teams. That's going to be a Friday through Sunday activity. And we'll also have a youth 5K starting from the amphitheater this Saturday morning. A group called Run Hard has youth participating in a 5K, but they'll start and finish at the amphitheater Saturday morning. And registration for our paddling events for the Rockin' and Rafting on June 4th is open, and we encourage folks to come out and support that event by participating in our water sports. They're going to kick off at about 8 o'clock, and I would imagine, and they have a semi-formal award ceremony, so I imagine they'll be out of there by about 10:30 or so.
Hey, Carl. Next up will be J.D. McCauley for HR.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just one quick update is that the Archer compensation study to keep our salaries competitive is underway, and that's on schedule and tentatively on this council's study session agenda for July 25th. We'll have a report. Archer will come down and give you guys their assessment and recommendations. And then just my plug for northaugusta.net/jobs. We update those every Friday for those interested in joining our team.
Thank you, J.D.
So, Mayor and Council, that concludes item 2 on our agenda, or on our list for today, which is department details. And so unless you have any further questions or comments, we'll go ahead and move into the Mayor's Matters portion for focus items. And I'd like to move forward with a presentation by Cammie Hayes, our Finance Director, regarding Riverside Village.
Good evening. Just have our standard quarterly update. We do these on a voluntary basis. It was a decision made by council back in 2019 to provide a more timely update on the financing related to Riverside Village. The first paragraph of the update discusses that it is a voluntary disclosure. This language was recommended by our bond counsel to include, so you'll see that at the top of all of these updates. The update has been published on EMMA, which is the Electronic Municipal Market Access. So folks can go online to emma.msrb.org and look under North Augusta Public Facilities Corporation and see this update as well as all of our others. We are required to do an annual filing, and we complete that once our audit is done. So our audit is still in progress. There are several tables in the update that come directly from that audit, so I'll point those tables out to you. They will be the same that you've seen before, so I won't go into those in great detail unless you have any questions, and I'll just hit the new items for this quarter. So this first chart, this is a table that's included in the statistical section of our annual financial report. This table has remained unchanged and will get updated with the audit. The next table is our tax rate. So this was updated for 2022, even though we had a change in our millage between the split of general fund and capital projects fund, our total millage remained at 73.5 mils, and this table just reflects that. The next table was updated to include our 2022 budget, and so we're required to publish our budget annually. Specifically for the general fund, they like that disclosed in a separate table, and that's what this table represents. The 10 largest taxpayers, again, this is a statistical table in the back of our financial report. It has not been updated, but you do see from the last update that we have some of the Riverside Village owners are now on the table. The tax collection record of the city, this is another statistical table from the financial report. It remains unchanged and will be updated with the audit. Again, this is a table that's part of the audit where our debt is disclosed in our financial statements, so we will update this. This includes our capital lease that we do for vehicles and equipment at the city, as well as all of our other debt remaining pertaining to Riverside Village, as well as public safety headquarters and our utilities debt. So all these figures will be updated once the audit is published. Next. This table specifically talks about our general obligation bonds. We do have one, and it is the one that we did for public safety headquarters. And so that bond was done through a referendum, so our entire borrowing capacity of 8% remains available. And we did make a principal payment during the first quarter, so that's why you see the $10,250,000 go down to 8.5. This represents our hospitality tax collections. Please note that the 21 figures remain unaudited until the audit's published, but we closed the year at 2.1 million, increase of 26% over the COVID year. I know we talked kind of through the quarters. We went back and compared to 2019 and saw that the increase was coming. For 2022, we're currently around 500,000, and I went back and compared that to first quarter of 2021, and we were up over 7%. So hospitality continues to do well in the city. Again, we do have a 2% hospitality rate, but only 1% is currently designated towards debt service. Accommodations tax. This table represents all accommodations tax in the city. Currently, only the accommodations tax collected from the Crown Plaza is dedicated towards debt service, but we look at all the accommodations tax for revenue reporting. We do have a 3% accommodations tax rate for the city. Current collections are around 46,000, and this is up over 55% from 2021 first quarter. I think we were still going through some COVID restrictions that first quarter, so I would expect that to level out some in comparison to like 2019 along those lines. The next table is our tax increment revenues. This includes all TIF revenues collected. So the TIF revenue that comes from the county, we have those intergovernmental agreements with Aiken County and the school district. It includes all of those revenues. reminder that we do have a payment that we make to the county as part of that intergovernmental agreement. It's around $350,000. We usually make that payment in the second quarter, so it's not reflected in this number currently. Next table. The next table represents our mid-assessments. We previously came to you with the assessment roll that you adopted on those properties, and the total mid-assessment for the 21 tax year that's being collected now in 22 is $747,000. For the first quarter, we've collected $78,000 of those mid-receipts, and that was from the hotel piece. There are some that remain uncollected, and again, just the due date is this weekend, and they have until Monday to remit any outstanding payments without penalty. Parking revenues, so this chart's going to look a little bit different than what you're used to seeing in the first quarter. We currently are going through some discussions with the hotel developer as well as management. We have obligations that are the city's responsibility and obligations that are the hotel management's responsibility. We own the deck, they manage the deck and collect revenue, remit those to the city. And so we're ironing out all of those responsibilities. The city's been able to take over some things to help reduce costs of management of that deck. And so all of that is getting ironed out, which is why the net number looks negative. And we hope to have that completely updated for you for the second quarter. We added additional language in the report to reflect that. And this is the last chart, reflects stadium revenue. Performance license fees is returning back to normal. So this is a lag in collecting this revenue. So the 22 first quarter is based on the 2021 season collections. So that's why the 21 collections were only $4,200. It's reflective of the COVID year where there was no baseball. So those numbers are starting to return to normal. Admissions tax, that's just a timing thing. It gets collected, we get it 2 quarters later. So you'll see that number come into play second and third quarter of the report. The rent is due on April 1st, which is why you see no collections in this first quarter, but they did make the rent payment on the 1st. So you'll see that in the second quarter report. And then naming rights are not paid till December, so that'll stay blank until fourth quarter. And that is all I have for you this evening, unless you have any questions.
This will be posted to our website. I know it's on the Emma, but tonight it will be on.
Yes, we can add it to the financial transparency piece, but yes, it's currently on Emma. It was posted before this meeting.
Okay, this is a very good presentation. Thank you.
Sure.
I like the comparison first quarter last year, this year, very good. So,
Mr. Mayor, as
these
well,
some nice numbers.
Cammie provided
Good to see.
Cammie provided a link also to our local media that we had some inquiries on about the Emma report. So that's with them as well.
That's great. Thank you, Cammie.
You're welcome.
Wonderful.
Next, I'd like to turn this over to Tom Zeser for under Engineering and Public Works to talk about the Greenway Bridge replacement options.
So it was, I think, January of last year when we last talked about this bridge and its condition. And I think at that time we just gave some general overview of the condition and a general recommendation of its replacement, but we advised that we would come back to you at a later date with some more specific information, I guess, regarding cost and other factors. And since that time, we actually had a couple of things occurred. Firstly, there was just upstream from the bridge, a portion of the creek embankment sloughed off and exposed a large water main on Riverside Boulevard, and that required some fairly emergency work of emergency nature, which was going to be a cost to us, which we didn't know immediately how much that would be. But fortunately, we were able to accomplish most of that repair work with city forces, and kept those costs to a minimum. Secondly, just more recently, a few weeks ago, a large tree fell onto the bridge. It's actually the second time that's occurred. There we go. But just to, I'll show you some pictures, but just to orient you, I guess I can't point on the screen, but this is the general area of the bridge. Buena Vista Avenue is in the upper right, Riverside Boulevard comes down, and hopefully you can make out the bridge where the trail sort of veers away from Riverside Boulevard and crosses the creek. That's the bridge we're talking about. So there's a picture of the current status of the bridge after the tree fell on it. The tree has been removed, but that's what remains of the bridge. It experienced significant structural damage to both the supports underneath the bridge as well as the superstructure above. A couple more images, different perspectives. You can see, well, you can generally see the condition of the bridge even without the tree damage. The wood decking was severely weathered. The railings were already kind of wonky, to use engineering terms, and yeah, and that actually goes back to design and construction of the original structure. But it was definitely in need of some major rehabilitation regardless. More images. The bridge has been, as you can see, has been barricaded and coned and signed as being out of service since the tree fell on it. Just now it's catching up. Are you doing that? Oh, I'm sorry. Go back. Go back. Go back one more. No, okay. Go forward. So that just shows the piers that were constructed originally. Forward. You can see that beam there has been split horizontally all the way across. This picture you can sort of make out. It's not real obvious, but the pier in the foreground is actually at a several degree tilt downstream. I thought that had occurred because that's almost directly where the tree hit. I thought that had occurred at the time of from the tree falling on it, but advanced to the. But you see here, this is an aerial image from 2019, and you can see the bridge looks reasonably straight there. But if you look at the next picture, you can see the bend in the middle of the bridge. You can also see the work we did in the creek to stabilize the creek there. But I believe that bend was actually, that damage to that pier was probably caused, we did have some large debris piles that had built up on the bridge previously, which we had removed, but we just did not perceive the actual bend in the bridge at that time. This just shows some of the other issues related to the bridge. There's a lot of erosion occurring underneath the structure, and the problem is that it's inaccessible to anything, to any machinery or even really personnel to get under that bridge and try to stabilize this erosion that's occurring in the stream bank. Regarding the railings on the bridge, when it was constructed originally, there was they were very wobbly, and so we made an attempt to stabilize those with these braces like you see here. Were marginally effective just because the bridge wasn't originally constructed to do that properly. Just some statistics: the bridge was constructed in 1998 as part of the Riverside Boulevard improvements at a cost of $22,000. Interestingly, the original plans for that project show here, this is a excerpt from it, show that the bridge was intended to be a prefabricated steel bridge supplied by the city. I'm not sure why I wasn't employed by the city at that time. I'm not sure why they changed from that original design, if it was a budget issue or what happened, but there was a change order at some point that called for the wooden structure that was ultimately constructed. So here's some options I'd like to discuss. The first is basically to just repair the bridge to make it usable and reasonably safe, basically to restore it to how it was before the tree damage a few weeks ago. Secondly would be to remove the superstructure of the bridge, keep the foundation piers in their current condition, and basically rebuild the entire superstructure to a much improved condition. And I'll talk about what that means in a minute. And thirdly third option is to remove the entire structure entirely, obviously, and replace it with a prefabricated steel bridge that would span the entire width of that creek. First option, obviously the repair, it has the cheapest costs. I estimate $8,000 to $10,000. Most of that work could be accomplished with, or all of it could be accomplished with city personnel within 2 to 3 weeks. Some of the downsides of that option is we do not really know the condition of those piers below the creek bed. You know, they're inaccessible without excavation. They are 22, 3 years old. That option would not allow us to really do much for the erosion that's occurring under the bridge, because the piers would still be, and the deck would still be in place to prevent access. The natural deterioration of the wood, you know, continues to create a potential for injury, possibly. And I estimate that work would have a lifespan of about 5 years before we'd have to basically redo it again. This option to rebuild, significantly more costs than the first. Again, we would completely remove the superstructure of the bridge. I do believe most of this work could be accomplished also with city personnel. This would allow us to access the creek bed, because that bridge deck would not be there. I estimate 6 to 8 weeks to do this work, and we still have the unknown of the piers below the creek bed, and then the issues with the wood surfaces, and I do think we could get about another 10 years out of that structure with this option. And when I talk about an improved condition, I'm going to show a few pictures of some structures that were constructed very well. These are actually on the Augusta Canal towpath right across the river. This just shows some examples of how such a structure, should be built. This just shows the beams spanning between. You see there's basically 4 plates with steel plates in there. You can see the rim joist here. You see the 3-member 2x12s on the outside there. That's what I call the rim joist. And our bridge actually only has single joists spanning between those piers. And this, they also have a 12-inch spacing of the joists in between, whereas we have 2 feet span between each joist. You can see much more robust connectors that were used in that structure. One of my favorite aspects is the safety. Instead of pickets like we have, they use a livestock panel type safety fence there, which is basically has a lifespan of many, many years. There are issues with the wood surface. This structure here still has some of the same issues with some of the exposure as the wood deteriorates. Next, you can see where they actually coated this structure in an attempt to try to prolong its life, but you can still see some evidence of some pretty significant weathering. I think this bridge here is probably, our boardwalk is maybe 5 years old, I think. Here you can see where the railing braces are braced to the main beams that span underneath the deck. It's all one piece. These were obviously done properly, much more structurally sound.
Can I just interrupt you real quick?
Sure.
So are those pictures, are you showing what that bridge should have been done originally?
Yeah, I'm
or
just
is
showing
that what
some-
you
some-
would be doing for option number 2 to make it?
Yes,
big number?
we would incorporate some of these elements would
Okay.
be my recommendation.
I got you.
Yes, into that. But alternatively, if the option was to completely rebuild that bridge, if we wanted to maintain the wooden bridge aesthetic, if that was something that was ultimately decided, I would, this is the type of structure that should be constructed.
Okay, thank you.
And then this, lastly, this is to completely replace the entire structure with in this example, this is using a prefabricated steel bridge. Total cost of approximately $150,000. Of that's broken down, engineering, $25,000. The bridge itself, which the city would purchase and furnish, approximately $75,000. And then $50,000 for construction. Construction in this case consists primarily of building the foundations on each end of the bridge, which is really just a concrete pad, and then actually setting the bridge on it, and then pouring a concrete deck onto the bridge. This bridge would be vehicle rated for, basically a pickup truck type vehicle. It would eliminate any piers in the creek, debris and hitting it and issues like that would not be an issue. Obviously, this also has the longest time frame to completion, 6 to 8 months. Most of that time is just in the time to actually get the structure once it's ordered. And then I put 50 years lifespan on here. I mean, it's probably more than that, actually. No one in this room would have to worry about that bridge ever again. And then this just shows some plans of what that bridge would look like. What I'm showing here is just the most basic prefabricated steel structure. It's just a truss, a basic square truss or box truss. I would propose we use weathering steel as opposed to a painted steel product. That again would just eliminate any future maintenance costs. And I'll show some pictures of what that would look like. And that's just a section through the bridge. Again, we're proposing here this is showing the full maintaining a 12-foot wide bridge, which is what is there now. And it's what our other bridges on the Greenway, they are 12-foot wide. This bridge, this section of trail does not get nearly the use of the mainline Greenway. So there is the option to reduce that width and somewhat reduce our cost for the project. And this just shows a similar type structure in the weathering steel. This example does have a slight arch to it, which ours would not. That's just an aesthetic design. And this is another one of the bridges at the Augusta Canal towpath. This one is a arch truss, similar to what we have on the Greenway now over Martintown Road, and also the one over the, that's the entrance to Hammond's Ferry at Crystal Lake. That is an arch truss bridge, which we could use in this case if that's, if we want to maintain that similar style of bridge, but it's a slightly more expensive construction for that bridge, but certainly something if that was important to council that we maintain similar structures, then we can certainly look at that option. And then just moving on to funding available, I have in here that we do have some funds remaining in capital project sales tax one fund, $108,000 that's remaining from a project that was somewhat loosely titled Mealing Buena Vista Waterworks Park Drainage Improvements, which this bridge is obviously within that project corridor. We are expecting some insurance proceeds from that bridge. We have yet to receive the estimate or from SMRF for the damage, but we are expecting something for that structure to either repair or replace it. I think that's all I have.
Thanks, Tom. I'll keep you up here because I'm sure you're going to get some questions from the council. But from administration's perspective, Tom's giving you, I think, 3 viable options, really from an engineering perspective. My personal opinion is that the metal bridge probably gives us the most bang for the buck, and that we're not going to have to, re-engineer this problem another 20 years from now. And I think we have a fairly decent funding solution in that we've got the $108,000 that's still in CPST 1, and at the rate of inflation now, I really hate to leave old CPST money just sitting out there being unencumbered. So I think this would go a long way towards paying for that, and I suspect we'll have a decent settlement from the SMRF folks to get us there. So I'm really looking at really an 85 to 90% funding solution today with what we have in hand plus the insurance money, and then we'd have to pay the differential through ARPA or through capital projects fund. But I think those makes us a more viable project. Although Tom's given some great options too along what's done with the Augusta Canal with the wooden bridge piece. But as we look at the long-term viability of that neighborhood, the fact that the Mealing Tract is likely going to develop and probably tie into that Greenway connection, we'll see some additional foot traffic on that bridge in the long term, along with other development that we know that's going to be happening along East Buena Vista. So I think this is probably a viable option. And I would lean very heavily towards this one, although I think Tom's second option is also a viable option as well. It's just that I suspect we'll be back here in another 10 to 15 years doing another request for funding to update the bridge. And I would, even though there's a technical feasibility of replacing the bridge in its current state, I would not lean heavily towards that option just because some of the same problems that exist now will just replicate over time. So with that, I'll turn it back to Mayor and Council for discussion or for questions.
Questions from council?
I don't really have any questions. I agree with Jim's recommendation. When you kind of look at it, break it down cost per year, there's not a huge difference amongst them, but not having to deal with that thing for another 50 plus years, plus the access to the creek bed and the erosion control to me. My question was going to be funding, but you guys have answered that, and I think that's a reasonable path. So that would be my preference, is to start looking more seriously at the replacement with the steel bridge.
I'll just say I'm in agreement with Kevin with option 3. I believe looking at the deterioration of the wood on the canal path that you showed that was 5 years old already, I think that's probably not the option that we want to go. And all the questions I actually wrote down while you're presenting, you answered, so I don't really have any questions.
I would like to see the cost on the arch bridge to match what we already have in place.
Okay, but what about the finish? Are you okay with the unpainted finish
Yes,
option?
I am, yes.
I was going to comment the same thing. I would lean towards the steel structure, and hopefully we can do the arch setup as well. And I kind of like the non-painted surface.
I think that the point for me, Jim mentioned, is I assume there's not a lot of activity on that bridge now compared to other parts of the Greenway, right? But with everything that's going to be happening that way, it's going to be. So it really would not benefit us to put a Band-Aid or a large gauze pad on it. So I'm with everybody. I think doing the bridge would be the way.
Are there any,
Arch, I'm good with that.
excuse me, are there any trees around the crossing now?
I think anything that could touch that bridge at this point has been eliminated.
Okay, thank you.
I think the funding mechanism you have so far looks good. I think we do need to look at what the arch would be and what does that look like.
So I was just going to recap that if I could, Mr. Mayor, is that what I'm hearing mayor and council tell us is that, we're going to go back and be able to present kind of side-by-side costs for just a straight box truss bridge, as Tom showed pictures of, and also what an arch bridge would look like, and or actually shown to look like, but what that would cost. And that way, this council can make a final decision on which way they want to go. But we will forego our analysis of the wooden bridge structures and focus solely on the metal bridge structure, and then also gives us some time to continue to coordinate with Smurf on our insurance settlement, because that will tell us exactly how much money we have to come out through either ARPA or for Capital Projects Fund to finish out the differential on that project.
Can we also, you mentioned if it was smaller because of low traffic area on the steel one, can we have a comparison between?
Like a 12-foot
like a
versus
yeah.
a 10. I think we also looked at a 10-foot bridge option, and we can certainly take a look at that as well if that's in the technical feasibility from the arch bridge. But as much of that as we can look at, we will.
Okay. And then I guess the only other thing I would say is if we do go that route, if we could possibly remove some of the bridge so it is less likely people will be going onto it for safety, if it's going to take 6 months, which that's probably in y'all's plan. But just from a safety issue, I think it would make more sense for it to be demolished than barricaded.
Yeah, we were just waiting to have this conversation, and if that's kind of the consensus, then we will take steps immediately to remove that structure, because I walked across it the other day to get those pictures. So.
This is a good presentation, Tom. Thank you for that.
So is that, just to make sure I understood that properly, is the council okay with us commencing demolition activities there to remove the bridge, or at least portions of the bridge, to prevent younger folks from pulling an Indiana Jones and coming across that thing? Okay. Thanks, Tom. Are there any other questions regarding this presentation? Okay. Next, we'll talk, I know Kelly and the mayor will talk the formal portion of this, but I would like to say one of our citizens pointed out correctly that I have a double listing as we talk about our tax parcels. And so parcel number 007-15-03-010 is actually, or correction, -001 is listed twice, which is the first one that's listed, and it's also listed as the third parcel. And the third parcel should be represented as 007-15-03-011, not 001. And just to make it easy for our citizens at home, the first three parcels are really bundled as the property that's on East Buena Vista that we were originally going to put the public safety headquarters on, and the final parcel there is property that's located near the 5th Street Bridge. So, Mr. Mayor and Kelly, I turn it back to y'all.
Okay. I've just got a couple of final things before we go in the executive session. I just want to give a shout out to everybody who participated Saturday in our first community trash bash at the Hamburg-Cartersville African American Heritage District. It was a huge success. We had great support from Tanya Michaela from a Stormwater, James or Kibler's group. A number of folks there were there to help us. Appreciate SciTech for assistance. We had a great turnout across the board, and it was very positive. And I think this is something we can build on as we move forward. So I want to thank council for your participation, and Even got Jim all dirty, but working hard, working hard there. So that was very good. Just remind everybody for the National Day of Prayer is May the 5th. That's next Thursday, where we'll have the mayor's prayer event. That will be at the Wesley Center at Grace United Methodist Church. We will open at 7:30, eat, and then the program will begin at 8 sharp. There's no cost to this. There's no tickets. So if you are interested, it would be great if you would let us know so we can have an idea of that. But we're very excited about that happening. And I wasn't sure if Carl was going to mention this or not, but the United Way helped fund a learning trail park at Somerville Park. I know Pat's not here, and she loves Somerville Park. But this is an awesome trail with signs that really helps with adults to help teach their children motor skills, reading. But if you haven't seen it, Somerville Park is very well done. It's about the length of really the dais. It's not real long, but it's very positive, and I think that will be a nice addition to Somerville Park. So I want to thank the United Way for working with Parks and Recreation Tourism for doing that. So if there's nothing else from anyone else, at this time, I would say in compliance with Section 30-4-70, the city attorney requests an executive session for the purpose of discussion, negotiations incident to proposed contractual arrangements and proposed sale or purchase of property, the receipt of legal advice, whether legal advice relates to a pending, threatened, or potential claim or other matter covered by the attorney-client privilege, settlement of legal claims, or the position of the public agency in other adversary situations involving the assertion against the agency of a claim. Discussion specifically related to the possible sale of Aiken County tax parcels 007-15-03-001, 007-15-03-010, and 008-02-001. Do I have a motion? I said zero. Did I say 008-02-001? I mean, oh, okay. Zero. Yeah, I crossed out the wrong one. Yeah, thank you. I need to say that again for the record. Yeah. So it's going to be the 007. Yeah, ends in 0. Okay. Is that good enough? Where we are? That's good. Okay. Do you have a motion to adjourn executive session?
So moved.
Ms. Toole, second. Ms. McCauley, all in favor? All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you. Have a good evening.